this video, we'll look at how we can use these planes to get proxy cutup meshes, like these ones. And we can also use it to get a first pass skin cluster. To do that, first we need to create these planes here. It's important that we first understand how the algorithm works, how he's going to use these planes. So basically they are a hierarchy. For each joint, they have a plane. So GNT underscore L arm joint exists somewhere. So every plane is corresponding to one joint. But the hierarchy is very similar to the joint, but it's still a bit different. The hierarchy tells the order of how the planes are being cut. So if you look at this, he first starts with the clavicle, and then he goes to all the children. So from here he goes to this one, from here he goes to this one, then goes further and further. And yeah, and here it becomes interesting again. So here we've got the fingers. After the wrist, he goes to the one that has the highest priority. Now we can see they all have a priority attribute. The thumb has 5, index has 4, middle 3, ring 2, and pinky has 1. So the highest one is the thumb. So he starts with that. So he's cutting this, and then he goes to here, here, and when he's done, he jumps back and go to the index, and goes to these one, and so on. And when he's done with all these fingers, he jumps back, goes all the way back. So we finish this one, it goes to the next one here. And the same here with the priority. So this one has 50, clavicle 50. Okay, that's kind of a random. He might, we don't, if they have the same priority, he might as well start with this one. But let's assume he starts with this one. Then he goes to this one. Head has 40, so he does that after. Now you might ask, why is the order so important? And then, okay, let's say we start with this plane. Then what he's doing, he's cutting all this section. And now the next thing he does, he starts with this plane here. Can you see how the plane ends here actually? But so the plane goes like this, ends here and here, but actually it keeps going further. At the end, it's still infinity. The same as these planes here. They also go further, and this one also goes further. Now, if you look at how this plane here goes further, this would cut into the head, but it's not actually doing that because this plane is only cutting everything that I was cutting out before, which is this part. So basically, you would cut out that part and remove it from the clavicle, which is so this is not yellow anymore. This is now green. So clavicle is yellow. Upper arm is green. This one did not cut because I'm only cutting it from whatever parent I was. And then you go to the next one, this one, then be only this one, and so on and so on. Another interesting thing is the spine. So if you look at the planes here, they seem kind of okay here, but these planes here, they seem like they would be totally cutting into the arms. And that's not actually happening because the clavicle and the upper twist, also the head, but this is not so relevant in this case, but they are all cutting these things away already. So all that's left for the spine is really just this part that is left over. The neck comes right after the spine and the planes here. Now there's one more interesting one, which is the hips. And the hips is the last plane, and it does not matter what shape it is. The hips basically takes whatever is left over from all the other planes. So now that we understand how it works, let's try to create those planes from scratch. So I'm going to go to segments and then create for all joints. You could theoretically also copy from another character. In most cases, I redo the planes though, because it's cleaner this way. Okay, so here the planes are really just small planes. So, but the hierarchy is already good. Sometimes you have to adjust the hierarchy too, but in this case, the hierarchy is pretty good already. Now, let's start with the clavicle. The clavicle is the absolute hardest one. So after you're done with the clavicle, everything else is a lot easier. So if I look at this plane here, this would totally cut into everything. So this would say, okay, this one belongs to the clavicle, but that's not what we want. So let's fit them to the clavicle. So I try to make the influence stop at the clavicle bone here and have the very base of the neck a little bit in it too. And here I try to make it stop at the armpits. Okay, that's too far here. Now we go to the next one, which is the upper arm twist. And that seems almost okay. If the plane is like this or like this, it wouldn't matter to the algorithm because it's a perfect plane and whatever is outside here is infinite. But I often do scale them because then I can see better. And here I can see that it should be a little bit like this. Okay. And the neck planes should be okay. I'm not even gonna scale them because they are very simple. Okay, now with the hand it gets is interesting. So I'm gonna check the priorities. So priority 5, priority 4, 3, 2, 1, and that's already correct. So here I just have to make sure that it's nicely in between the fingers. And this one too. Yeah, that's looking good already. Okay. So now the next one would be the right side. And the right side I can just mirror. So mirror, mirror all planes. The head is pretty easy. You just have to make sure that it's below the jawline. Sometimes when you have very huge head, you have to make sure that the plane doesn't really cut into the side of the head or something. Okay, the upper leg also needs a bit more attention because this one would basically cut all the right side too. So we have to fix that. So I just have to make sure that the left leg is not cutting into the right leg. And on the back side, and then these ones they seem okay. One that almost always needs attention is the leg wrist one. This one here. This one is always oriented to this joint, but it should actually be oriented like this because you want this one in the foot. The leg wrist is the foot. Now for the toes, again we check if the order is good. So start with priority 5, which is this one, 4, 3, 2, and the last one. So the order is good. Now we can see here some issues. And we might not actually be able to cut that perfectly because the toes are so close to each other. They are even overlapping. So if you have that, there's not much you can do. You can only do it as good as you can, and then you might have to fix stuff manually. But here, this might actually just work. Yeah, this will definitely cut into some unwanted geometry. Okay, now I'm just gonna mirror everything. Okay, now that we have the planes, let's try to skin this mesh. And that would be in SkinCluster, and then selected polish all planes. But first I want to make sure that it's nicely visible, and so I can watch how he's doing it. And if you watch very closely here, you might already find some mistakes. So sometimes when he does one side and suddenly another vertex is selected, then you know that the planes are bleeding over. But judging from here, it looks pretty good. So for a first pass skin cluster, it seems pretty good. And now let's try to create a mistake to see what happens if the planes are not perfect. So one thing that happens very often is that if the planes are not long enough, like in this case, so this curve here would go into and cut into this. So this section would not be in the up leg. Now when you come to the leg, you'll see that he's selecting other stuff. Okay, yeah, you see here exactly that happened. This did not get selected, and this was selected at the wrong place. You will have these issues very often, and it's always about trying to identify them and fix them. Yeah, exactly. So it's all crazy. Okay, now that we've seen how the skin cluster works, let's use the planes for doing the proxy cutout meshes. And so I just select all the meshes that I want and go to GeoCut and selected police all planes. And here I can also watch him again, how he's cutting this. And if he's doing anything wrong, I might see it already here. So this gave me all the cut geometries. There's all meshes starting with cut and then similar names as the joints. And there's one more button I have to click, which is the make proxy meshes. And this is for every joint, one mesh. And they start with proxy. And this is basically what you can export now. So you can just do it in my import folder and rename it to proxies and export selected. If you want to parent this to the skeleton, there's no magic about it. You can go into the script of the base human, look at the proxies function, and with this one, you can just get that into your character. If you are doing a pipette like we just did, it's probably gonna be very easy and straightforward. But if you're having a creature, especially one where you're throwing in and deleting a few limbs here, then you could run into a few extra issues. So let's create for this wolf here. And I'm just gonna do create all joints. And so let's just look, for example, in the toes. The toes are often the challenge. So let's see. So we've got here that I'm not going to look at the shapes. I'm more just going to check the hierarchy. So we got here toe index meta, which has priority 4, middle 3, 2. Yeah, that seems okay. Sometimes if you have a toe going backwards, you might have to shuffle around the planes, and sometimes you have to adjust the priorities. So that could be. Now I see one thing here. So there's after this there's his leg fingers. Now this is a mistake. So this is the plane that should not be here, and it's probably going to fix in a later version. But for now, you just have to know, okay, if there's a plane that should not be there, just delete it. And now it's clean, and also delete it on the other side. And I know that there's a similar thing on the tail. If you have dynamics, you also create a few planes that should not be there. So you create the dynamic plane. They all have this thin name in there. So these ones, they are here by mistake. And if you have any planes that should not be there, then they are going to cause you trouble. So you just delete those, and you still have the correct ones. So this is basically just cleaning up the hierarchy to make sure the cutting algorithm works.